All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started because we've got a big day today. I'm Julie Reynolds, and I'm your host here for your hostess for this Missouri Open Door monthly workshop. This month, October, is National Disability Employment Month. So, and we've decided to look at our life course domain around daily life and employment, and specifically employment. So I'm going to talk about a few life course things, and then David Baker, our special guest, or I guess our always guest, is going to do some things about assistive technology. So I want to thank you again for being here. And if you can go ahead and advance Angelina. Angelina is our executive producer again today. We'll do a couple of shameless product plugs. So if you haven't already, our Missouri stakeholders meeting is tomorrow. This is the first one we've done in person in 2 years, so we're very excited. We're also doing a virtual option. So if you would like to register and like to attend and have time just for a part of it or all of it tomorrow, I will drop this link in the chat as soon as I get done speaking. Go ahead. My other shameless product plug is that we have just recently, this is hot off the press, within the past like 20 minutes, announced the dates for our 2023 showcase. It's going to be May 2nd through 4th in Kansas City, Missouri. So for those of you who don't know, this is an event we put on annually to really, it's not a conference, it's a showcase. And what it does is, what it says is it showcases what people are doing with the life course framework, the tools from across the country in all kinds of different areas, not only in the developmental disability field, but also in the education field, with support coordination in various areas, just different innovative areas. People will come together and talk about what they've been doing and share what they've been doing and talk to you about what you've been doing. It's a great time to get ideas, to get energy. I always say I get a little tired toward the end of early in the new year, and I always look forward to the showcase in the spring because I can get a good 9 months energy out of it. So please mark your calendars if you're interested, and then registration, will be putting that information out soon. But again, that's May 2nd through 4th in Kansas City, Missouri. Okay. And my last shameless product plug is just a reminder we still do our Good Life groups for families and for self-advocates. If just anybody who wants to join together with somebody from our Missouri Family to Family team to talk about and to learn about things in different areas, everything from blast off with kids aged birth to 13, sorry, that launch into life course, which is for young adults, planning forward, which is as you start to age and get older. And then we have Becca Matthews, who is a sibling of her brother has autism. So she does a sibling-centered Good Life group. So these are all on our Missouri Family to Family website. So just kind of a reminder, we're doing those if you have any families that would like to attend. Okay, Angelina. And we are still here under the Missouri No Wrong Door. Our original contracts ended actually at the end of September because everything ends in September for the federal government. So, but we are going to continue with these Missouri Open Door workshops because people have enjoyed them so much. We do have another No Wrong Door grant that we recently got, and that started actually October 1st. And in subsequent meetings, we'll be talking a little bit more about that. But we still really are here and want to continue to build that Missouri No Wrong Door system to support individuals and caregivers with any kind of information they need to enter the system, no matter where they come in. Okay. My next, I want to talk about, this is our Medicare Minute here. So Medicare open enrollment started October 15th. So some of you that don't have, have not experienced or have not worked with anybody on Medicare, this is a time if you have anyone in your life or that you're working with that is getting ready to turn 65, anybody who is become eligible for Medicaid or Medicare through a disability. This is or anybody that's on Medicare now, it's a perfect opportunity to review the plan they're on. Claim it here that we've got here knows everything there is to know about Medicare and then some. So if you have questions or someone that you are working with or familiar with has questions about open enrollment, what Medicare you have, what you should be doing with Medicare, what your options are. It is a great time to call claim and see if you need to update that Medicare plan or that Medicare plan. So I will also put the information about claim in the chat when I get off talking. So go ahead, Angelina. And then here I will put this up, but this is the claim information, MissouriClaim.org. So I'll put that in the thing, but just kind of keep in mind, open enrollment's open until December 7th, which by the way is Pearl Harbor Day. So if you or anyone you know are interested in looking at what you're getting or know what you want to get, please call claim. Okay. I am now done with my shameless product plugs. As I said, October is National Disability Employment Month. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about employment, but look at it from a different light. So there's to kind of show you guys some resources and some things we have out there on our Charting the Life course website that you can use for employment and actually for a lot of other domains, but I'm kind of sticking with employment right now. So go ahead, Angelina. So we have a booklet, we call these quick guides. We have an entire booklet around daily life and employment. And it's really for people, for individuals and their families and professionals to really think about questions that need to be asked around employment when you're ready to start a job, for young people coming out of high school or college, also for older people that might be interested in some kind of a new career or a different career, or want to do something else with their day around volunteering, education. So this kind of helps really think about the different questions to ask around what you'd like to do. And I will put all these links in the chat, but our website is lifecoursetools.com. And under library, you can find a lot of this information. Okay, next one, Angelina. So I just want to kind of do a couple of things, talk about a couple of pages in the book. So this, I think, is a really cool, why do we work? And obviously, the first line here is we work to make a living. We work to live, and hopefully we're not living to work. It's just part of a balance of our lives. But there's lots of other reasons we work. I mean, we go to work, to interact with other people, to interact with the people that we know and have, common work experiences or commonality with what we do. We go to collaborate and build a community with the people we work with. And we go to make a difference. For a lot of us, or most of us, I think, on this call, we do what we do in this field because we want to make a difference in people's lives. So that's really, there's a lot of reasons that people want to work beyond just, a paycheck. There's a lot of, things you can gain social capital through work. So I always want us to remember that sometimes we get in the drudgery of our jobs, but I think that work is a very positive experience for many, many people. And we really want to start thinking about it for everybody at a very young age. And I will talk about that in just a few minutes, but I wanted to kind of could get focused on why do we work and why do we want to support people who might need our assistance in work or in their careers. Okay, Angelina. So this is just in the booklet. There's some stories from different people who have, and I know you can't read all this, but I'm going to encourage you to go to our book. But like I said, work does bring us meaning. It brings us relationships and support. And I just love the pictures here because everybody here is so happy that they have good jobs and that they get to work. And it was kind of one of their life aspirations to get to have a job. So there's some good stories in here about how the journey that these folks took to find good jobs and jobs that fit them. I think that's a big part of it too. Some people don't really get to do the work that fits them. Sometimes we put them in a box of work that may not fit them, and they don't like it. They want to do, all of us, I think, want to have a career and want to have work that fulfills us and brings us meaning. Okay, Angelina. And this is just some different things about thinking about what you want to be when you grow up. One thing that we realize when you work in the field with people with disabilities is sometimes the bar is set very low and we don't explore all the career possibilities with them. We really don't think through with them and ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? As kids grow up, who might have some challenges, we kind of quit asking them when they're little what they want to be when they grow up, because we have some assumptions about what that is. And I think as we learn more and more about people, we learn that we have to start asking those questions early, because your aspirations are part of what gets you through. And it's okay if you want to be an astronaut, which I never did. I never understood that, but that's okay. So it's okay to have those dreams and aspirations. And then what kind of a career can we find for you that allows you to do that? A great example, I worked with someone once who's one of their aspirations is they wanted a zebra. Probably not realistic, but that was their dream. So when you look up here with a career for doers, you see working in animals or zoology. So that's a great way to do that. So this is just some things in the book that really let you think about, if you're this kind of person, if you're a doer, or if you're a thinker, creative, what are some different jobs, that you can talk about? And it really just is help. This is obviously not a comprehensive list, but it's something that just gives you an idea of, okay, this is how I love to organize. So these are jobs that'd be great for me. So that's just one of the kind of great things about this book, is it just gives you some conversation starters too, and some things to start talking about. Okay, Angelina. And then just I always have to do my plug for the integrated support star. So you can do that around employment, and you can see here we've already put in some questions. What are my assets and strengths that will help me achieve my employment? I think that is the absolute most important thing we can do, is talk to people, all people, about what their strengths and assets are, because we don't do that enough in our world. And then we're going to talk in a few minutes about what technology can support you in your work. But there's also things like relationships and your community-based supports, whether it's, friends and businesses, friends volunteering, that can help you with that too. So always remember, when you're kind of problem solving with people and thinking with people, these stars can be used for anything, and they really kind of help people focus and problem solve. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is the experience and questions booklet. And we call this the Blue Book. This is also available on our website. And again, I'll put that in the chat. But this is really some more information, a little more detail about what kind of questions to think about and really when to ask them. And in here it has all the different domains. There's health and safety, there's health, there's safety and security, community living and employment, all those kind of things. So I just want to show you a couple of pages around employment. So go ahead, Angelina. So again, I forget what my slides are and I start talking ahead of myself, but these are all the really domains that we think about around the life course. And then these are really the different life stages. And it is never too early to start talking about, careers and work and what you want to do when you grow up. So that's why we have all this information in here, it kind of in that manner by life stage. So go ahead, Angelina. So I just pulled out the daily life and employment, and you can see the beginning information here. So really you start out at prenatal and infancy. There's things about education, but something around employment when you've got a very young child is really to think about the family and around their employment. Do you need to quit your job to take care of your child? And how will you kind of deal with that? Or can you continue to work? Is there childcare available? And how do we look at that? Kind of things like, are you worried about my diagnosis? Do you have a vision and plan for when I get older? And it's never too late to start. It's never too early to start thinking about these things and starting to talk about them. So, and then when you get into early childhood, you really think about, what is my future going to look like as I learn and grow? What kind of activities, can I do and can I get involved in that will help build that future to where I want to be when I grow up? Really thinking about, regardless of what challenges a child has, really seeing them as being able to do anything they set their mind to, even though they might need extra help, but they can really do anything anyone else can do. And thinking about that early on in life, that employment is an option for people. And really starting to think about giving chores to kids when they're very young. So they get used to having responsibilities and work. A friend of mine has a brother with autism, and Kurt never had to dust. Kylie had to do all the dusting, and she hated that. She was always angry Well, Kurt moved out from his family to live independently, and he didn't know how to dust. He didn't know how to do a lot of cleaning because he'd never done that at a young age. So I think that's just a lesson that we can start with kids very early to learn responsibilities. And then school age is really a critical time. Again, thinking about what you want to be when you grow up. Am I taking the classes that I need for a job and family? What else do I have at home that I'm doing? And also really talking about employment, really at a young age, around 14, we should really start having those conversations about when people are going to graduate from high school and what's going to happen. Is college, is it a trade school? Is it employment? And what does that look like? If we don't start planning ahead and planning early, you're going to be 18, you're going to be 21, and all of a sudden you didn't plan anything. And time goes very quickly, as we can all tell, because we don't know what happened in September or October. So just keep that in mind. Okay, go ahead, Angelina. And then really the other very critical is that transition time. When you're starting to think about leaving high school, or leaving that stage of your life, what is your transition plan? How do you start getting work experience? How do you start getting, even volunteer experience? What are you doing to think about looking for a job or think about going to college? Can you find, have you used the other book I showed you to think about what kind of careers you might like and how you focus on what you're doing? How are you going to help me get a job? How can I learn about different things that people are doing out in the world? Can I go job shadow? Can I go watch people do other things? That sort of thing. And then if there is going to be some extra support, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, what kind of technology will I need to have a good job and to continue to do that work? And then what role does vocational rehabilitation have in helping me with that college or career? And then we move to adulthood, really thinking about, if you don't have a job yet and want to find one and you just got out of college, what do you like to do during the day? Is there a job or a volunteer opportunity that can help build my skills? Everybody goes and tries to get an internship in college so they get that real life experience, but volunteering is also a great way to do that. You learn lots of things and learn what you do and don't like, and you also learn how to interact with the people around you. Thinking about full or part-time job, how much money do I need to make? What can I run my own business? I worked with someone who was an artist, and she started her own business selling her artwork, and she did beautiful artwork. So, that was just a really, to me, cool thing that she could do. And so many people can do that, just thinking about, how do I do my own business? Who can help me with that? And then things like, once I find a job, what do I need to do to keep my job? And what do I need to do to continue with it? And what do I need to do to be promoted and move up? So all of those things are just things you can ask those questions to start talking to people about employment, really at any stage, but in that adulthood stage. And then in aging, I'm starting to face this because I'm in that category. Can I afford to retire? Well, I've answered those questions for myself, and because I'm still here talking to you, the obvious question is no. But also, I really enjoy my work. It brings me great satisfaction. I really enjoy the people I work with. So retirement holds no interest to me, because I have asked these questions. What would I do? And I don't know what I'd do if I retired at this point. I have a few hobbies, but nothing that's going to keep me busy. And really, what would I do to replace my income? So, asking those and a lot of other questions, there's a lot of questions to ask, in planning for retirement, but it's really good to think about, is that something I really want? What do I want to do? Am I enjoying what I do? So these are all some good questions to ask as you get older. So go ahead, Angelina. So I just want to show you.
Before we move on, we had a question in the chat.
Sure.
Somebody said that these conversations can be overwhelming for teens who are already swamped with schoolwork and anxiety and depression. And they asked how you balance the future with all the responsibilities of the present.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really is. This is all, everything we talk about, it has to be adjusted on an individual basis for where that individual is or that person is at that time. So, it can be as little as just like, well, have you thought about what you want to be when you grow up? And if it's not a question they can answer, just kind of move on. I mean, there's stages in people's life when they're ready to talk about this. We want to start early. We want to have those conversations so we're not kind of stuck, not knowing what to do at 18 or 21. But I just think you have to gauge where that person is. If there's a lot going on, there's a lot of things going on. If they have a lot of issues, I think that this is you generally you can't have that conversation. You just have to meet people where they are and kind of keep in the back of your head when we get to a point, there may be a point or there's going to be a point where we can have that conversation. And also really having it with the family members. Maybe they can, letting them know all these possibilities, and then they can decide when they want to broach that topic. And sometimes family members, they're as big a challenge as anything because they want to be very protective and wrap their loved ones in bubble wrap and not let them out in the world. And at some point that shelter of school, you're going to move on from. So also, a lot of this, really everything I've said also goes for how you talk to the family, but always individualize it and meet people where they are. But thank you for the question. Hopefully that answered it. If not, put in the chat that I did not answer your question and I'll try and answer it better. Okay, so I just want to show you, I know we've done a lot of trajectories on here if you've been on here before and talked about it a lot. This one is really cool, and I think you will definitely see how you can use this when David starts talking about the assistive technology. But this is really a trajectory that was really set up to plan for employment. So it goes into the same kind of things we traditionally do with a trajectory about what your vision is for your good life, your good employment, what you don't want, kind of what your short-term goal is for employment. What do you really want to be doing to get to the long run, but what do you want to do in the short term? Are there skills you need to learn or kind of a job? Well, I speak for myself. I don't know how many jobs I've had. I all thought they were going to be long-term, but they weren't. I learned things and grew. So thinking about that for people, and then also really helping them think about, what do they need? What things should they have to apply for a job and to get a job? And what this little line here, I think is very cool, is this tells you the steps to get here. So when David starts showing us some of the assistive technology, those are perfect things to put here. So let's just say it's an individual with a hearing issue. What are some of the things in this? What are some of the assistive devices they might need? Or if they have low vision, they may need, the apps and things David will talk about. So those are some things you can kind of put on. These are really steps to employment, to getting from, where you are now to that good life you want for employment. And then kind of things that might make it harder. And if you find the things that might make it harder, you can put those on the steps for things that you need to move into employment. So it's just we modify these for different ways and different uses. And it kind of just shows you the versatility of kind of using that trajectory to plan. And again, you can keep this, and as you meet something on one of these steps, cross it off and put something else on, or check it off. And when you've met all the steps, where are we now? Are we ready for this information? And with the question you had earlier, this might be something you think about with the family, or if you're working with that young person pretty closely, you could write some of those things here and just have it for, future reference and start thinking about it when they're ready to think about it. Okay, Angelina. And then, of course, I always have to show another star, but so we have a portfolio for planning employment, and what you saw with the trajectory is on the other full side of this. It kind of just talks about what you want for people to hire you. So it's a little booklet form. What help do you need? Some of the same things, but kind of get some general information. What I like most about this, I call this the split star. So it really talks about, and the stars are hard when you split them like this because you keep running out of room. But really, if you kind of focus on a certain thing, so you focus on employment, what do you have now? So you've done that trajectory, you know what you have and what you need. So for your personal strengths and assets, what do you have and what do you need? A great one would be, right now I have, so I'm going to use myself. I have jeans and things because I work from home. If I'm going to go out in the world and get a job, I'm going to need to have some nicer clothes, probably. If I have with one of my strengths now, is, I have my own checking account. Something in the future I might want is a debit card, or some of those other more personal things. So you can just do that. Where do you have now around technology? Well, I have an alarm clock that's going to get me out of bed, but I really need an iPad to do my job. So just kind of thinking about what you have now and what you need in the future. If you're ready for employment, you may have Medicaid now, but you may not be in VR yet. So you may want to go to VR to help you work on the job. So this is just a nice tool, I think. The stars are great, but this is sort of another way to think through planning. Okay. All right, it is now time for me to turn it over to David Baker, and I'll let him come on, introduce himself, and get started.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you so much, Julie, for all that you just shared about kind of utilizing the STAR. And I was kind of thinking through a couple of the charts that you showed there and how they kind of tie into the world of assistive technology. So I'll kind of try to meld those things together as we're going along. So for those of you who are not familiar with me, I'm David Baker. I'm the Director of Missouri Assistive Technology, which is Missouri's federally funded Assistive Technology Act program, and we help people acquire information and access assistive technology and the related services. So always a pleasure to have all of you attending our MOD series. And again, employment is our focus here. And I think we're all pretty aware that the fact is that employment is an important part of adulthood. And it certainly does provide us with opportunities to increase our self-confidence, our quality of life, our wellness, our social relationships, and even our financial resources. So it's, as Julie kind of pointed out, it's one of the key life stages, and we can never kind of start thinking about employment itself, and then also maybe even the assistive technology we might need when we're employed. We can never start thinking too early about those. So Angelina, if we move on to the next slide. The preparation and planning are critical, and they are obviously essential steps to supporting individuals in the workplace. Workplaces do present us with some unique challenges when we talk about assistive technology. Not only are we looking at the individual themselves and the type of assistive technology that might help them in the workplace, but we always have to kind of keep in mind that workplaces are sometimes very structured environments, and there are processes and policies and spheres of influence and other factors that can kind of come into play sometimes as we incorporate assistive technology to help somebody. I might suggest an app or a piece of software, and it's probably going to be a case of we also have to kind of get some clearance from other people in the organization in order to be able to have an individual be able to use that piece of technology. So just something to kind of keep in the back of your minds. I think we all are aware, though, that there is the ADA, and assistive technology is considered a reasonable accommodation. So there's lots of opportunities to incorporate it into the world of work. So, that's one unique aspect about the workplace, and the purpose of assistive technology in the workplace is obviously to make things possible for employees who have disabilities. And it's important that we focus on finding AT that assists with the essential functions of the job. That is why somebody is employed. There are these essential functions, these outcomes they're supposed to achieve. And so we kind of sometimes need to make sure that our focus is on assistive technology or potential assistive technology that's tied to those essential functions that the individual is expected to accomplish. So if we move on to the next slide, Angelina. One of the things that we often try to do during our MOD series is to sort of share what I call a foundational building block or an AT concept, something from the world of assistive technology that's sort of an important element to be able to kind of help people have a similar discussion regardless of what you do. And the feature matching is what we're going to focus in on today. And this is kind of, there was some parallel there between the idea of feature matching and one of those trajectories that Julie shared. So what is feature matching? Well, it's a process. It's a process of identifying the features in technology that are going to benefit the AT user based on their abilities and needs. So we're looking for those features that a piece of technology has that are going to align with the user and what their needs are and what their abilities are. So before we kind of even begin looking for a technology solution, we want to understand who the user is, and where they're working, what their functions are, all those types of things, what their strengths are, what they need out of a piece of assistive technology, and then also take into consider their personal preferences. Sometimes we kind of forget about personal preferences when we talk about incorporating technology, but that can be certainly very important to make a good match with an individual. So once we've looked at the user, their strengths, their needs, their preferences, then we look at the features of the available technology that's out there, and that helps us narrow our vision and helps us identify appropriate devices a little bit easier. So let's kind of walk through an example of this. Let's imagine that we're working with somebody who has difficulty writing with a pencil. But we do know through some of the conversation we've had with them before that they can use a keyboard and they type. However, they identified that typing is a slow and laborious process for them, and that they also have some difficulty spelling. So just in those few sentences there, we kind of identified some features that we would be wanting to look for as we go out and find a technology solution for this employee. We'd be wanting to look for a keyboard, maybe a standard or an adapted keyboard. We want to find a feature in the technology that can help with the typing speed, so maybe some kind of alternative access. We also want to find technology that has that can help with the difficulty the individual has with spelling. So maybe we want to find some kind of word prediction program as well. So, feature matching, really important as we have some initial conversations to find technology for an individual we're working with. So let's move on to the next slide, Angelina. And there were so many things that I wanted to talk about here today in the world of assistive technology that might be used in an employment sphere, but we are going to kind of focus in on what I consider to be sort of the 5 most common disabilities situations that we see out there among employees with disabilities. So we're going to touch on technology for individuals with vision and hearing issues, those with physical access issues, struggling readers and writers, and then executive function. Executive function, for those of you who may not be familiar, is sort of that umbrella term that encompasses all those kind of daily activities related to memory, emotional control, time management, sort of the air traffic controllers of our minds, if you will, that are incredibly important in an employment sphere. Unfortunately, one thing that I really wanted to touch on that I've kind of been spending a little bit of time doing research on that I think would kind of fit in, maybe it'll be another mod somewhere down the road, is assistive technology related to mental health. So let's just kind of put that on the side. Maybe we'll be able to come back to it in a future mod. Angelina, if you move on to the next slide, please. I was talking a little about feature matching. And so another thing that I want to kind of put in people's minds here is that a lot of times assistive technology is going to be in the eye of the beholder. And so we can look for features in technology that's sort of all over the place. And I've kind of divided the world of assistive technology into 3 sort of technology spheres here lately. We still have lots of dedicated devices, which we'll talk about a number of those, but we now are seeing all the universally designed devices that have come out onto the market, the tablets, the smartphones, other types of technology that have built-in accessibility features that can make them equally as valuable to everybody the minute they're taken out of the box. And then we have what I refer to as the adaptable mainstream devices. These devices that may have been designed for the mainstream world and have some fun things that make our lives easier, but people with disabilities are looking at these and they're saying, hey, you know what? That actually gives possibilities for me to be able to do things I might not otherwise be able to do. And so the voice assistants are kind of the quintessential example of that. But regardless, if we go dedicated, universal design, some kind of mainstream device that can be adapted, all roads lead back to the idea of what are the features that are in that technology that are going to align to the needs of the individual we're working with. All right, so let's move to the next slide, and we are going to kind of rapidly go through these here. I unfortunately always seem to have more slides than I have time for, but there's a silver lining in that, in the sense that that just shows us how many wonderful pieces of assistive technology are out there that can help the folks that we work with. So we're going to start with vision, and we're going to kind of walk through some of the main items that we see used in employment for individuals with both those who are blind as well as those who have low vision. And I'm going to kind of drive home a point here today, and that is those built-in accessibility features that we now see in the Windows operating system, the Apple operating system, the Google operating system. If you haven't spent time understanding those and getting familiar with them, strongly encourage you to, because we may have the perfect assistive technology solution for an individual in a workplace, and it's right there under our noses, already built into some piece of technology that an individual is using. So just in the vision sphere alone, some of the built-in accessibility features, there are the equivalents of screen readers that are built into operating systems now. There's magnification options. There's ways that we can change the color contrast for folks that are colorblind. Lots of free, already existing built-in accessibility features. For some folks that have low vision, we don't have to make, it's really just a case of trying to find a little tweak here, a little tweak there. So in the middle, in the upper row, we see large key labels and color contrast keyboards, which might be useful to help somebody orientate or see things better. And they're really just a case of, like the large key labels, for instance, are something you can go out and you can buy. They cost about $10, but they can make all the differences if somebody's struggling a little bit with seeing their keyboard. You could go from the white letters on the black background to yellow letters that are larger numbers, all those types of things. Another thing that I see used from time to time is a little bit of puff paint that's put on the keyboard to help somebody orientate to the home row or find the left click or the right click if they have some kind of vision related issue. We have on the right-hand side, in the top row and then right below it, 2 examples of electronic enlarging. We often talk about how we're going to go to a completely digital, paper-free world, but the reality of the matter is, I think we're probably drowning in more paper in the workplace now than we ever have. And print text can be incredibly difficult for somebody who has low vision. So if I'm somebody and I have writing I need to do, or I get a lot of material in a print format and I don't have access to alternative formats, I can use electronic enlarger to enhance the size, the font of the material, and then I can have other tools in there that can help me change contrast, help me read, track a number of different little features that can be customized to my need. Unfortunately, we don't spend all of our days sitting behind a desk, and the electronic enlarger in the top row is stationary. So there are all sorts of portable electronic enlargers out there. Some of them actually have OCR software in them, so they can read some material back to me as well as magnify it. But those might be really handy to put in my backpack or my purse if I have to go to a meeting and somebody hands something out, or I'm trying to find a location in a building and the placards are too small. I can magnify it, and they are just another form of making things easier for people to access so they can do them independently. Also, kind of staying in that bottom row, back there over on the left-hand side, screen magnification software. There are some built-in options again, but sometimes people need a more robust version of screen magnification software. And so we have products like Zoom Text. There's several others on the market that can take digital text, enhance it to a size that is easily readable for somebody, and has other features that might be beneficial depending on their level of vision loss. Screen magnification is going to be for folks that have low vision. For those individuals who are blind, then we have the screen reading technology, which essentially is going to read and process digital content. And in this picture, not only is this young lady using screen reading software, but she's also using a Braille display. So that content is being provided to her, and she's using refreshable Braille to be able to understand what is on that computer keyboard. And just a quick employment story, and you can move to the next slide as I tell this. I used to have a friend. Wow, that sounded kind of pathetic. I used to have a friend. I still do have this friend, and he's visually impaired, and he works in an industry that has a high degree of security. And he uses screen reading software, and he doesn't know if they were truthful about this, but somebody who was a higher up once jokingly said to him that part of the reason they hired him was because he used a screen reader, so he never had to turn his monitor on. And so they felt that any content that was passing through his computer was safer than the other employees because he never had to turn his monitor on because he was using a screen reader. Even if that's not 100% true, I think it's actually kind of an interesting statement, just some of the benefits that we see sometimes with technology and folks with disabilities in certain workplaces. Captioning, one of the wonderful things that's come out of the pandemic, if you can say that, is the fact that I think we have all become a lot more aware of the value of captioning for individuals who have hearing loss, either they're deaf or they've lost some hearing over their lifetime. Also for folks that English is not their primary language, we're seeing evolution as platforms like Zoom and Google and Teams have all incorporated captioning in there. And I think it's probably improved our ability to communicate with folks with a variety of disabilities, but in particular individuals with hearing issues. On the right-hand side in the top row is an assistive listening device. What these are, they're portable, and there's a number of them out there, but what they do is they amplify sounds and voices, especially in a noisy environment. And in a workplace, we want to make sure that we're understanding everything that's being shared with us by our supervisor, by our customers, in a meeting, in one-on-one conversation. And these are a great tool for those individuals that have a mild to moderate loss. We're also still very reliant on telephones in workplaces, more than just constantly being on Zoom. And in the bottom row on the right-hand side, we see an inline amplifier. And this is one that's attached to a traditional telephone, but those same types of amplifiers are available for cell phones as well. And then the last picture here in the bottom left-hand corner is a caption telephone, which looks pretty much like any other telephone we might see in an office environment, but I can speak directly to the person, they can speak to us. There is a captioner in between, and so all that content's coming up so that I can make sure that I am getting all the information that's important that I need to capture through a telephone call. Let's move, while I'm talking about captioning, as we move on to the next slide here, kind of a public service commercial break. I want to make sure that everybody's aware of Relay Missouri. Relay Missouri has been really important for a lot of years to help people find jobs, to do their jobs, to be able to communicate if they have a disability, either hearing related, vision related, speech related, and there are a number of types of relay services. There's the traditional relay that we might be familiar with, but there's also a telebraille relay. There's a speech-to-speech relay service for those individuals that might be difficult to understand on the telephone. And then there is a conference captioning version of relay as well, which might be really useful during a webinar or a conference call or those types of things. So it's a great resource that's out there. It's important for employment. Just want to kind of put that plug in for the Relay Missouri service while we had an opportunity. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. And I'm going to kind of skip over this because I've kind of driven this point home a little bit already. Those built-in accessibility features. Everybody, our big three, Microsoft, Apple, Google, have all been building in accessibility features every time they come out with an operating system update. They've improved these features in some way, shape, or form. We're actually starting to see some, for lack of a better way to describe it, consistency. So what I mean by that is we're starting to see in all these products something that will provide me with screen reading option, magnification options, options for folks that have physical issues, options for those individuals that might be struggling readers, more and more tools all the time to help me customize my devices that I might use on my job to meet my needs, and I don't have to go out and find another piece of assistive technology. Another reason to get familiar with the accessibility features that are built in, these can sometimes be your tester, your AT tester. You are struggling. Let's just say that you are beginning to experience some age-related hearing, or let's use vision loss as an example. Let's say you're starting to acquire some age-related vision loss, and it's beginning to affect your ability to do your job. You've heard of magnification, so you could turn on the magnification feature in one of these of the primary operating systems and begin to explore that and understand whether or not that's going to be useful for you. And if what they have built in isn't enough for you, but you know it's going to be useful, then you could go out and find a piece of assistive technology that would be a little more robust. So there's more than just the tools here. These can also be tools that help us understand assistive technology better and understand the degree or where we need to go as we explore it. Moving on, we'll go real quick through some computer adaptations. Not everything has to be complex. We've talked on several occasions about low, mid, and high tech. A number of people, you know, they have issues with dexterity. So some simple solutions that might keep in mind are key guards, which are going to prevent people from inadvertently getting extra keys by dragging their hands across the keyboard or something like that. It can help them focus in, find that key that they're looking for, and not have to worry about hitting extemporaneous keys. Somebody's clumsy on the workplace, moisture guards, or maybe somebody has a tendency to drool. They're afraid of getting in the keyboard. Then you could go with a moisture guard. And then if we move on to the next slide, and we have so many adapted keyboards. We're all still really reliant on keyboards in the workplace. There's more smart devices, obviously, but we still have a lot of use of desktop and laptop computers. So Angelina, if you can move on to the next slide. And lots of different ways we can adapt these. We have mini keyboards, which have all the same functions and keys of a regular keyboard. They've just been shrunk down for somebody who maybe doesn't have larger motor movement, but they have good fine motor skills. And so everything is still there, but it's on a little smaller footprint. And the keys are going to be a little smaller, or they're going to be a little closer together. So that might be useful in a situation where somebody just has fine motor skills and the regular keyboard is just too large for them. On the flip side of the equation are the enlarged keyboards. Maybe somebody's fine motor skills aren't that good, but they have the grosser motor skills. And so by having an enlarged keyboard where the keys are bigger, then that might be a solution for them to access the keyboard. And you'll notice in this picture, we have, this is one that's also got some uses for folks that have cognitive issues. The keys are color coded. So function keys are one color, vowels are another color, consonants are another color. And so that just helps somebody orientate, but it can also help somebody recognize the keys that they're going for as they're typing. Move on to the next slide. One-handed and one-fingered keyboards. Kind of the point of all these keyboards is the fact we have lots of options for adapting it. Let's move on to the next slide. And then ergonomic keyboards. We have a lot of folks that have the carpal tunnel, they have the repetitive stress types of injuries that accrue a lot of times because of our work. And it's important not to exasperate that. It's also important to prevent that. So ergonomic keyboards are something to keep in mind in those situations. And then on the right-hand side, the chording keyboard. This is kind of a unique little device called a twiddle. Or twiddler, I believe, and it's a one-handed combination. It combines both the mouse and the keyboard into this device that I can hold. And so the idea behind it is to minimize hand movement and stress to the wrist. And so I use a combination of keys and chords. If anybody's ever played the piano, you can either play a note or you can play a chord. Same idea. Certain chord combinations produce certain things happening on my computer screen, et cetera, et cetera. So can also be used with tablet devices and can be used with smartphones, kind of an innovative device that's come out here recently. Moving on to the next slide. We will, on-screen keyboards, virtual keyboards. I can use these with eye gaze, which we're going to look at here in a second. I can use them with switches and scanning. We also have a number of folks that may not be the greatest typers in the world, and they do the ping pong game where they're looking at the screen, looking at the keyboard, looking at the screen, but we can keep their heads focused on the screen, and they can access those keys either by touching them or using a device to make the selection for them. And then at the high end of the technology scale, we have the voice input devices, the software and one thing and another. So let's move on to the next slide. Just a couple more things to keep in mind about computers and making them accessible for folks with disabilities. Not everybody can use a traditional computer, keyboard, mouse combination. So we have to look for alternative access methods to help them be able to access their computer. And we have head operated mice. We have the eye gaze, which I just touched on. And sometimes people use switches. And so in order to make that happen, where they hit a switch and an action occurs, we might have to investigate the use of a computer interface with the computer. And then they hit the switch, it scans through their options. They hit another switch, for instance, and it's going to make something happen on the computer screen. Next slide. So the mouse has been the bane of a lot of people's existence for many years. And one of the beauties of computers and people that are employed on a job that uses a computer is that they're pretty darn simple actually to modify. Most things are plug and play or Bluetooth, and so not a lot of technological know-how necessary to be able to make any of these adaptations I've touched on so far. But we have trackballs and we have touchpads, and I'm assuming most people are familiar with the trackball and the touchpad. We've seen these a million times. But I want to kind of draw your attention to that joystick in the middle. There are lots of aspects to matching somebody up with a piece of assistive technology. And so this joystick is designed with people, predominantly people that are going to, maybe somebody with cerebral palsy or some other kind of mobility issue. And so it's designed, you'll see in the front, there's a large area there that's a wrist rest. So they can place their wrist on there and keep it stable. And then the buttons on the top, which are going to do all our features like left click, right click, cut and paste, all those types of things, are larger. They're color coded. They actually kind of have a built-in key guard there, so it makes it easier for somebody to get their finger down in there. But that the joystick that's in there involves my being able to use a pinching move. Well, not everybody can do that. So you'll see below the joystick we have a T, sort of a T. I'm drawing a blank here. It's a T grip, I think is the name for it. But what it does, I might have a movement that's a little bit with two fingers, it's a little bit more of a claw movement. And so if I can get my fingers wrapped around that, then that might be a better way for me to control the joystick. And then if I'm somebody that doesn't even have the ability to fully close my hand, but I can rest my palm on that blue ball, which I could just screw into that joystick, then that gives me the ability to do all the movements that I need to have to move the cursor around on the screen. So let's turn next to reading and moving on to the next slide. One of the things that's really kind of exploded out there over the last few years in terms of apps and extensions, and then also built-in accessibility features, are the things that are coming out that are going to help struggling readers. And there's quite a few individuals where reading is not their strongest skill. Maybe they need a little help once in a while. Maybe they need a lot of help. So for instance, on the right-hand side, we have two examples of features that are built into the Apple operating system. They have something called Speak Select and Speak Screen, which are under a broader heading called Spoken Content. So Speak Select, if I'm not somebody that needs to convert digital print into an auditory format on a regular basis, but from time to time I need to do that, then I can access the Speak Select feature and it will highlight an area. I can enlarge that. I hit another button and that content's going to be spoken to me. On the bottom there, we see illustrated Safari Reader. Safari Reader is interesting because one of the issues that sometimes happens when people are asked to do something online, like a research project or to look up some information, is there's lots of clutter on websites in this day and age. So Safari Reader takes all those distractions out and just gives to the individual that content that is most relevant to what they're searching for. That's more and more I hear school districts in particular talking about that clutter and how it's so distracting to kids, and these types of tools are very useful for keeping them focused. On the right hand side, just a couple of examples of ways that we can do the same thing if you're operating in the Google environment. There are a number of apps and extensions to provide text to speech, and then there's an extension out there called Readability, which does essentially the same thing as Safari Reader and just cleans up all that clutter that you might see on a website that is causing somebody to lose their focus. Moving on to the next slide, some apps that are available that can be really useful for somebody to be able to convert print text into an auditory format. Voice Dream Reader, we see that it's quite a popular app. I can take just about any form of text and save it in a digital format, and Voice Dream Reader is going to read it back to me. And there are a lot of tools that I can use to manipulate that text. So if I have dyslexia, I can use a dyslexic font. I can have highlighting. I can have the bar, like in this instance, this white bar helps me track. I can jump around. I can bookmark things. I can change voices. So I can use it when I'm online. I can use it to read documents. I can use it to pull stuff down out of like a Google account and be able to access it and convert it into an auditory format. For those on the go needs that we might have from time to time, Prismo over there on the right hand side is what we refer to as a scan and read app. And so it enables me to be able to, let's say somebody gives me a piece of paper, I struggle with reading it, I can open up the app, I can take a picture of it, it's going to almost instantaneously convert it using OCR and have it read back to me. So it enables me to independently be able to do something I might have struggled with before. Oh my gosh, we are running out of time. So I want to, let's Angelina, if you want to just kind of go to, we'll do this, just start moving through the slides and I'll do the quick 2-minute thing. There are a number of standalone devices. These are all things we can certainly provide you with additional information on: the OrCam Read, the reading machines, all the softwares for those more robust needs related to converting text into some kind of audio format. Next slide is executive function, a real struggle for a lot of individuals. There's a number of note-taking apps. Note-taking is really important in the workplace, and we can combine audio and written text into the note-taking apps so somebody can capture and recall stuff as they need to. And then let's go to the last slide, Angelina. I knew I had a lot of stuff here, which is just all this. We'll share the slides with everybody. And okay, so it's 1:30. And just finally, the point here is there are lots of assistive technology options. And I just want to share this last thing with all of you. And this is the Happy Light Lucent. A lot of folks have issues with seasonally adjusted disorder. The days are getting shorter. This is a light therapy lamp. I've been doing a little work with folks around light therapy lamps, and the feedback is good. So maybe as the days get shorter and you're looking for something to kind of keep you perked up, keep your mood good, you might want to experiment a little bit with using this form of assistive technology in the workplace. So sorry about that, but thank you very much. And we will probably loop back to some of those other devices in another mod.
Thanks, David. Sorry about that. Everybody have a great day. Our next one is November 16th on vacation and travel. Note that is a different day. It's not the fourth Wednesday. It is whatever Wednesday that is. And we just put up a poll. If you could please answer that before you go. And next time I'll let David have more time. And then we have planned our 2023 series. So those will be on the slides. When you go take a look at those, you can see what we're doing every month and kind of what the topic is and then what we'll be doing at that time. And as always, if you have any questions, there's our life course thing. If you have any questions, please let David or I know. And this should be up in a few days on our YouTube channel and also on our website. So thank you all very much. Please do your poll and then you're welcome to leave. We appreciate your time.